Hello, my name is Deanna Nielsen, and today we're going to be talking about and then making our own textile art. So textile art is art using fabric, fibers, yarn, and threads, also sometimes called fiber art. I know that not everyone knows very much about textile art, which is why I wanted to include a little introduction before we make our own, but I promise this will be brief. So for a lot of history, textile art hasn't always been viewed as art. A lot of times it's viewed as more of a craft. But I definitely think it takes a lot of skill to make these works, and I can see many of them being considered art. And really, it's up to you what you think. But in this example, the Bayeux Tapestry, this was made around the 11th century, and it shows the Norman conquest of England. And so you can see here, this is just a very small part of this artwork. You can see there's a section on, I included two sections of it here. There's many sections. This is actually around 230 feet long, if you can imagine that. And it's impressive how much time people put into making this historical artwork because it takes so long to sew these images on here and the words and to embroider them. So it's really impressive. I'm not going to talk a lot about ancient textile art today. I wanted to focus more on modern textile art so you can see how much the field has grown and changed from the Bayeux Tapestry to today. So here's some modern artists working with textile arts today. I included their Instagram usernames so you can look at their art more and follow them if you want. So here, these two are tapestries. They're wall hangings, weavings. And this is what we're going to be making today, but simpler. And so a lot of weavers spend a long time learning how to weave, and they have really nice looms. But the cool thing is we're going to make cardboard looms today, and that'll be a lot of fun. And so you can see weavings can be abstract, like the one on the left, where it's not trying to show something the way it looks, it's trying to communicate something in a different way, like feelings and emotions and stories. On the right, you can see that this weaving is focused on a beautiful scene, and it's more representational. Here's two more examples of fiber art, and I included the artist there at the bottom who made both of these. And I think these are beautiful. There's something about the shapes that she includes that feel very natural and organic and beautiful, and I love the colors she chooses. That's why I included these ones. So these are embroidered artworks. And so the one on the left is a close-up of one of the artist's works. You can see all the different textures and details, and there's even beads in there. The one on the right shows a similar one and how small it is. It's crazy how much detail she got into such a small little piece of embroidery. And so with embroidery, you take a hoop like the one you see there in the right picture. That one's a wooden hoop, I believe. You put some fabric in it, and then you sew. And you embroider with different threads and things like that. And you can make it look like something in real life, or you can make it abstract like these ones. There's a lot of different things you can do with embroidery. You can also use textile art to make sculptures like these two here that are representing a butterfly and some sort of moth. And I think these are really beautiful and show that textile art can really be done in many different ways. And here's another example of a unique use of textile art. You can see that they look like coral reefs, and that's the artist's inspiration, is to talk about the way coral reefs are affected by the world around us and how they're changing over time. And so she uses recycled yarn, so she doesn't go buy new yarn, but she uses old yarn left over from different places, and she'll use that to make her artworks, which I think is really cool. This is another unique example of what textile art can look like. So this is different threads in different colors, and you can see it just makes this beautiful effect. And he has some ones that are rainbows and some that are silver, and they're all really beautiful and interesting. And then these are amazing. So these are embroidered portraits. So they look like people, but she made them out of threads. If you've ever seen a thread, they're so tiny. It's crazy how much detail this artist is able to get into these portraits. So those are the examples I wanted to share today, and now we're going to talk about how to make your own cardboard loom and your own weaving. I hope you guys enjoyed that introduction to textile art. I wanted to show you a few more things and then we can get started. So this is a weaving I made myself on my loom, and and then I just hung it on the stick. And so that's a helpful way to hang your weavings when you're done. I also wanted to show you my loom. So this is my loom, and I got it online. And so I wanted to show you a few things about it before we get started. So there's threads going up and down, that's called the warp. And then this thread going side to side, that's the weft, and that's what we're gonna add in to make it look really interesting. The warp keeps it together, and the weft is what makes it beautiful. And that's pretty much it. So you can see there's some notches here at the top and the bottom. That's where the warp thread passes through to hold it all together. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a similar loom out of cardboard, because everyone has cardboard. You can get a box from your house. You can cut a rectangle like this. You can pick the size you want. And what you're going to do, once you have your rectangle, is you're going to measure out some even lines at the top and the bottom. So I did 1/2 inch, but you can pick your size and do whatever works best for you. If you're doing this with a younger child, maybe do it a little wider. If you're an adult, you can do it a little narrower. I find 1/2 inch works pretty well for this kind of thing. And then you cut it. So you cut on the line, and that makes it so that the thread can go through each of these lines. And then I also have 2 smaller pieces of cardboard that are the same width as my loom. And what I'm going to do is tape them right above where I made these cuts. So these cuts go to here. I'm going to tape one there, and then right above this one here. And that will help it so that when we do our weaving, it gives you a little bit more room. Because if you didn't have that, the threads and the yarn would be flat against the loom. And it's kind of hard to get your fingers in there. So this just makes it a little bit more doable. And it's really helpful with younger children. Just make it a little bit easier for them. So you can do this project with any age. Child, adult, anyone. If you do have young kids, you're going to want to help them make the loom, because it'll be a little hard for them to do it themselves, especially the measuring part. So you want to make sure that it's even, because that will make your weaving look really nice when you're done. Okay, so I've taped the parts on there, and they'll stay long enough for me to make this. So this is what I'm going to use for my warp thread. You can use yarn or something like that if that's what you have at home. I like this stuff because it's a little thinner and it's still strong, so it'll hold it. And so I'm just going to get a bunch of this out, and I will show you how to thread your loom. Okay, so you're just going to start at one side. I'm going to start right here. And so you want to leave a tail on the end and tuck it behind. So you can see I left a tail there. What I'm actually going to do to make life a little easier is I'm just going to tape it in place, because you want your warp thread to have a nice tension. You want it to be kind of tight. And so I take it down to the bottom. And with cardboard, you want to make sure it doesn't bunch up. So that's a pretty good tightness where it's not bunching up, but it's also not loose. Because the problem is if you make it too loose, then your weaving looks kind of messy, and it doesn't stay together as well. So now I'm just going to go back and forth, just like this. So just bring it around. And so all the thread is going to stay in the front, and you just bring it around like that. So you can see I'm just going to continue filling this out, so then we're ready to go. So I will come back once I'm ready. Okay, so I've finished this, and so you can see it's pretty tight, and if I pull on it, I can see there's a bit of tension, and so that'll work pretty well. And so now we're going to get started. So you can pick out any color yarn you want, any thickness, and you can even include other things if you want to be really creative, like paper and fabric, embroidery threads. So I'm going to get a good amount of it so I can get started. And I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom. You can start at the top or whatever you want. So what you're going to do is we're going to start with the tabby weave, which is over one, under one. So you want to go over one warp thread, under one warp thread, over one, under one. So you can see I went under this first one, I'm going to go over this one, and I'm going to bring it under this one, so over one, under one. And so you can continue this as long as you want. It's helpful to have some of this at the beginning of your weaving because it kind of keeps everything in place. So I think weaving is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of different weaving techniques out there. I'm just going to give you a couple basic ones today, and then I hope if you like this, you go out and learn some more. If you Google them, you can find a lot of great ones, or feel free to comment on the video, and I will try to get back to you. So I'm going to just pull this through. So you can use things to like help pull it through for you, like a needle and things like that. You can even make a little paper thing that you wrap the yarn around. I'm just going to pull it through with my hands, but if you want to use a different way, that's okay. Okay, so when you get as much as you want through, you're going to leave a tail at the end, and that'll help you so when you're done that you can connect it so that your yarn doesn't fall out of your weaving, because that would be so sad. Okay, so you can see here at the end, I ended over this thread. So now that I'm going back, I need to go under and then over. And so that way it wraps around the last piece of yarn. And it all stays together. Okay, so I'm going to pull this through. Okay, so I'm going to take a minute to weave the rest of this through, and then I will show you the next stitch or weaving technique. So I finished doing my tabby weave here at the bottom in the blue. So now I'm going to add in a different color just for fun. I'm going to show you a different way to weave, a different weaving technique. So you can use thick yarn like this. I really like it because I think it adds a really pretty texture. Or if all you just have is the same thickness, that's fine too. Really just use whatever you like or whatever you have on hand. So now I've got a piece of this, and so this is called the twill weave. So I'm just gonna start out here to make it easy. So I'm gonna go, so I go over 2, under 1. So you can see here I've taken it over 2, under 1, and what I'm gonna do is when I'm done, I'm gonna tuck the end in behind it so that it stays together. So I'm gonna go over these 2, under 1, and I'm going to continue this pattern for a while, and then it'll make a cool texture. So I'm going to pull this through like before. I'm going to leave a tail like I did before. Like I said, that'll just make it easier to tie it off when you're done. You can also just tie the threads together if you want to switch colors, and that works well. It's easy. It doesn't always look quite as nice, but it's an acceptable way to do that. There's definitely different ways to add yarn in when you're doing a weaving, but since you're just starting out, I suggest just doing something easy. Okay, now that I've got this first part in there, I'm going to go ahead and weave some more of that, and I'll come back to you when I'm done. So remember, over 2, under 1, and you can also switch that. You can add more numbers in. You can go over 3, under 1, things like that. Alright, so I finished up the twill weave, you can see that here, and then went ahead and did a little bit more tabby and did some knots, and I'm going to show you how to do the knots, and that is going to be the final part before I show you how to finish off your weaving. So as you're making your own, be creative with the different types you use and the different colors. You can make shapes and all sorts of fun things. You can look at more weaving techniques. So here I'm going to show you how you do this. So you're going to take your yarn and cut it into even pieces. So these are both the same length, and I did that for all of these. And now I'm using 4 pieces of yarn here because this yarn is really thin, but if you have thicker yarn, you can use less. I suggest using 2 at least because I think it makes it look a little bit more full and kind of gives it that pretty fringe look with all the knots. So you're going to hold it like this, and you're going to put it behind the string you want to tie it on. So it's angled like this. So it's behind the string. I want to tie it to this one. And then pull it up. So I'm holding the loop on one side and the ends on the other side. And I'm going to take the loop and pull the ends through it. And I'm going to pull them so they're the same length. Then pull it tight and then push the loop up. And I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to fold it in half so I have a loop on the right side. I'm going to put it underneath the string I want to tie it around. I'm going to hold the loop on the right and pull the strings through, all of them together. Pull it tight. Pull it up so then I have my fringe like this. And then what I'm going to do is I already trimmed the rest of them. You want to trim them so they're same length because it'll vary a little bit. You're not going to get it perfect. And get rid of the extra bits. Okay. So now my knots are all around the same length. Now it's time to finish off your weaving. And so what you're going to do, as you can see on in the back here, that you have these little loops here. So you're going to pull them through. So I'm going to start up here with the first one. I'm going to pull it over. So now I have a loop here. I'm going to cut that in half at the top and I'm going to tie it into a knot. And so it helps to have a bit of a longer piece, but as long as it's not too short, you can make it work. So I'm going to tie it once, and I'm going to tie it into a double knot, and that'll make it nice and sturdy. So now it looks like that. You can see the double knot. And then when you're done taking all them off and tying them like that, you can trim it. So I'm going to go ahead, pause it, tie them all off, and then I'll show you the very end. So I went ahead and trimmed the top and the bottom parts of the warp thread. So now all I need to do is tie off these little side parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the back of it, and I'm just going to try to tie them all so that they look kind of hidden in the back, because you're not going to look at the back of your weaving after you hang it up. And so I took these two and just crossed them over in the back, and I'm just going to double knot it and trim it. So just be careful that you don't pull your weaving too tight in the front or anything like that. So I'm going to finish tying these off. And something you can always do is tuck it in under something else before tying it, if that helps it to stay better and look better in the front. So give me a minute just to tie these off. And then you're done, you just trim them so they look nice and neat. Just got a couple more to do here. Okay. So hopefully that still looks okay. I hope you had fun weaving with me today. Feel free to use your cardboard loom again to make more amazing creations, and I hope you have a wonderful day.